I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, July 8th, 2026 meeting of the Tenino Planning Commission. Let the record show that all commissioners are present with the exception of Valerie Roberts, who's excused. Let's take a look at the agenda here.
Move to approve the agenda minutes.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we have the minutes from our last meeting, which was May 13th. Okay,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have no members of the public for comment. Do we have any reports from downstairs? No. No? Okay, no public hearing. Okay, Melissa, do you want to talk about the comp plan zones?
Yeah, it's just the short-term rental stuff.
Oh, that's it? Oh, it
Yes.
says city planner update on comp plan zones, but you're talking about the short-term rental stuff.
That was a while back, so we had talked at council, so I wasn't sure.
No worries.
I probably should have double checked, but yeah.
It's all
Okay, no worries. So maybe we can take that off the agenda. Do you want to, can we make another motion to approve the agenda minus the unfinished business? Just to be official.
I move to remove the unfinished business portion from the agenda.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, new business. We're going to talk about short-term rentals. What's so funny about that?
I love how easygoing this planning commission is. Okay, so I got the questions from Adam and Will. So the first one was, I can't find where the current code prohibits short-term rentals. It seems like it's not covered. Can someone point out the problem we will be fixing? The big thing is it's not a direct prohibition. The way that our code is written is that it doesn't allow short-term rentals by just not mentioning short-term rentals, right? It's not an outright, we permit this, and therefore we don't permit it.
But nobody's said, I want to do it, and they've been denied the ability to do it?
I haven't heard anything, but that's not to say that that hasn't happened. I haven't talked to the mayor about that.
Okay.
But we can update our code to allow for it or allow for it with conditions or certain parameters in place.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys had a chance to review the technical memo, but it goes into our existing code, what our lodging uses are. The biggest thing that I would point out right now is that short-term rental is defined under the RCWs. And it very specifically says that it's not a hotel or motel or bed and breakfast. So the closest thing that we have in our code for a short-term rental is a bed and breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
But the definition of short-term rental specifically says that it's not a bed and breakfast. So my recommendation would be, if we want to allow for the use of short-term rentals, then we should have a section of the code dedicated to short-term rentals, not under the bed and breakfast, not under any other, not grouped with any of the other portions, but just as its own standalone short-term rental section.
So in order to have these type of short-term rentals in town, you said that we prohibit it by not mentioning it?
That's
Is that I don't really understand that.
Yeah, essentially, so what a lot of jurisdictions do, and I believe ours is the same, but I'd have to double check, is that it, I believe our code specifies that if it doesn't state that something is outright permitted, then it is essentially not allowed. Like it's not permitted at all. Some jurisdictions say that, and I'd have to look this up for sure for ours, because I don't remember off the top of my head. But some jurisdictions say that if it's not permitted, but it's not explicitly prohibited, then it's a conditional use. I believe ours is the former, but like I said, I'd have to double check. My coworker Laura was the one that did most of the research for this. And she did a really good job. So the biggest thing is that, or my biggest concern with adding a short-term rental section, if we're gonna do a whole section, is that the amount of time that we spend on this, it does cost the city money. And if this is not going to bring in any revenue because there's no current VRBO or Airbnbs within our jurisdiction, that does cause me some pause. However, it's not up to me. That's just something that I wanted to let you guys know. It doesnent appear that there are any within our jurisdiction. However, we do have a lot of touristy kind of things around here. So it might just be that since our code doesn't outright permit it, that people don't feel comfortable.
You think?
It could be. In my experience, most people don't even look.
Yeah.
They just put their house on the.
I would assume.
Yeah.
I would have assumed before we started talking about it that I could Airbnb my house if I felt like it, and I wouldn't come to the city or mention anything to the city about it. I wouldn't even think to, probably.
Yeah. And I agree. I think that most people would be like that. As a planner, that's not my first way of thinking.
So
But,
in some
yeah.
communities, like most of these kind of rentals are right next to a vacation zone of some kind. I feel like we're sort of on the edge of that, really, at best. But do some cities get money from Airbnb and Vrbo rentals somehow?
Yeah,
They
so
do.
what they do is they require a business license and a permit.
Okay. Oh.
And often these are annual. So
Okay.
that is a source of revenue.
So this
for-
would be basically allowing us to collect that money by having this in place,
Correct.
if we did this.
Yes, yeah, we would have to define the permitting steps and make sure that it is included under the business license requirements, but yes.
You mentioned that it would add a cost if there wasn't this additional income presumably from licensure or permitting or whatever. Is that just from the administration of the thing, or where would that add cost come from?
So just adding that to the code costs the city money because the amount of time that I spend on anything just being here costs the city.
I see. Okay.
How
Yeah.
much do you think that those code amendment or changes would cost?
Typically for Tenino code, it can be anywhere from about 10 to 20 hours, which is about $1,000 to $2,500. It just depends. Sometimes it's more depending on like how much discussion we need to have. Sometimes it's less when it's, fairly simple and straightforward. It's just dependent on how complex we want to get.
And then people would still have to basically self-report about the Airbnb, otherwise no one would know that it was an Airbnb, unless we looked. I mean, we could look, but that
I
would,
think we need more data and costs for just making a new code, municipal code. That in itself costs money, has to go through attorneys, has to go through approvals, has to go through many things, which costs them. So I would say minimum, maybe $5,000 to $10,000 in order to process that.
Yeah.
On your time as well, and our time as well.
Most of our code doesn't go through the attorney.
Well,
It
we
go,
have a Tenino municipal code doesn't go through Thurston County for approval or any
No.
legislation or anything like that.
no, it goes to you guys. We finalize it, and then once it's gotten to the approval stage, we have a public hearing. Once it gets through the public hearing and you guys recommend it for, recommend approval to city council, it goes to city council, and then they'll formally adopt it through that process.
So I still think we need more data on how many Airbnbs we have and the logistics of the tourists and that sort of thing.
I mean, I
before we
looked
go
on-
forward. Did you?
I looked on there, I didn't
did-
see
I saw
any.
two today online, but
In the city limits?
in Tenino.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see any when I was like,
I just seeing if I wanted to rent one, so I went on Google Safari and just looked up, Airbnbs in Tenino. Boom, came right up. Airbnb, excuse me, yeah. And I also looked up Verbo.
Adam, what are you thinking about this discussion right now? And it was kind of like part of your idea.
So, initially, I was just getting on VRBO to check out if there was one in Tenino. Because last I checked, there wasn't one, but that doesn't mean that somebody hasn't created one since.
You could have done it, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
and
summer-
Tenino listed
It's
in
summer
my
now,
list.
so maybe.
What I will say is that I think we need to have the policy discussion. So that is to say that Melissa's time and anything that she's gonna spend actually updating the code, that's gonna be a city council decision, whether we wanna actually spend the money or not. I don't think planning commission necessarily decides, hey, yes, go update the code, that has to go to the city council first. So as far as I was thinking, this is the place to start the policy discussion. How would we structure this? Would we want to update the code? And that kind of thing. I wanted to get the policy discussion started so that we have at least a beginning point, moving forward. I think there's also a utility in having the discussion because with more noise in the community saying, hey, look, Tenino's updating their municipal code to allow short-term rentals. Perhaps that will get somebody interested in, they're already thinking about putting an ADU on their house, and now they're
Yeah.
like, hey, you know what, actually, I want to put an ADU on there, and I want the option of renting it during the summer, or I only want to rent during the winter. Essentially, I like to, this is kind of growing out of a couple comments that we've had at the city council, which is, we want a hotel in the city.
Sure.
We want a hotel in the city, which is outstanding. I would 100% support a hotel in the city limits of Tenino. I don't know anybody that wants to do the capital outlay required to start a hotel, and I'm not sure that they want to do the staffing required. Now, a step down from that is individuals who have either the means or the ability to rent a room or rent an ADU that they've put up. And I just wanted to make sure that that was explicitly allowed in the code, so that if we ever had to say, hey, yes, we do have something for that, here you go. Or hey, you are doing a short-term rental in the city, and by the way, that requires a business license. So here's the municipal code for that.
So it sounds like if there was some code that needed to be written, talking about that couple of points basically, and you need to get a business license and there's some kind of permit involved, and just have that established for the day when Tenino everybody is clamoring for Airbnbs in the city
Yes,
limits.
yes.
And then we could be better equipped to capture that potential revenue
All the houses in Tenino.
when
will be
everyone
rented
Airbnbs
for
at once.
summer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a policy discussion, right? It's where we want to head as a city,
Right.
Do we want to allow this? Is this a horrific idea that we don't want to do because, whatever? That's the conversation that I was hoping to start here, where I was directed to also start here.
Go for it.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me is like reducing the housing stock, because we already have like really inflated housing prices, and so if we're allowing something that's going to reduce the amount of houses in Tenino, and and then drive up the housing costs, is that gonna, I mean, like, I moved into Tenino because I couldn't afford to live in Olympia, right? And so does that mean people are gonna move to Dakota? Because Tenino starts to get too expensive? So, like, I think limiting it to the sort of, like, where people are occupying it, or limiting it to ADUs, and not having, like, single-family homes be, like, owned by a company that owns 1,000 single-family homes and is just renting them out, is, like, really important here.
That is a good point.
I'll say there are parameters on what the city how the city can regulate short-term rentals, that are pretty explicit in the RCWs. Let me see if I brought them, because then I'll just hand it to you.
So it might be challenging to limit it to ADUs or something along those lines.
Yeah, I don't, I'd have to do specifically more research in regard to all of the requirements. The requirements that I brought were, short-term rental, regarding ADUs. But if we're having the question, that's kind of the opposite of the answers that I brought, right? Is that you're asking the question of what if we just limit it to ADUs, and I more brought the answers for what if we just we didn't limit ADUs for being a short-term rental, like
So,
it,
could you explain that?
or sorry, if we didn't limit it to the ADUs, like if we included single-family residences.
Right.
So all I have is the local regulations for accessory dwelling units, which have specific parameters, and it does talk about short-term rentals.
If we wanted to have, if we wanted to limit it ADUs, then could we, even though bed and breakfasts aren't specifically called out as a short-term rental, our code basically would make that possible if we put Airbnbs and Verbos underneath bed and breakfasts, because you already have to be on site for those.
Well, because the RCW specifically says that they're not a bed and breakfast, we can't count a short-term rental as
We
a
can't.
bed and breakfast.
We
No,
define it in our own way.
we need to read it, we need to update our code, which we already knew that. So that's, like, if somebody came in saying that they want to do a short-term rental, they just want to rent out one bedroom for an Airbnb, I think we're getting ahead of the weird conversation that would be, essentially the harried conversation between the staff members of being like, okay, well, how do we define this? Because it's not defined in our code. Because there is a discrepancy between what the RCW says and what our code allows for.
What is the term of a short-term rental? Like, I can rent out my house for a month, right, on a lease or something like that? But not a day, obviously.
I think it's typically less than 31 days. But I could be confusing it with the Airbnb code that for Tenino that I read earlier. I can actually see if this says. Yeah, so short-term, this is the RCW definition. Short-term rental means a lodging use that is not a hotel or motel or bed and breakfast in which a dwelling unit or portion thereof that is offered or provided to a guest by a short-term rental operator for a fee for fewer than 30 consecutive nights.
I see.
And then it goes on to say that it does not include certain things. I can go on if you want. Do you want to hear that?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Short-term rental does not include any of the following. A dwelling unit that is occupied by the owner for at least 6 months during the calendar year and in which fewer than 3 rooms are rented at any time. A dwelling unit or portion thereof that is used by the same person for 30 or more consecutive nights, or a dwelling unit or portion thereof that is operated by an organization or government entity that is registered as a charitable organization with the Secretary of State, State of Washington, or is classified by the Federal Internal Revenue Service as a public charity or a private foundation, and provides temporary housing to individuals who are being treated for trauma, injury, or disease, or their family members.
So that doesn't cover, sorry,
No, go ahead. Please participate.
There's extra microphones on the
Yeah.
was up there? Yeah.
You should be comfortable.
Yeah.
I should, yeah. So that doesn't cover the, I think I heard it exempted out of there, that an owner of a home who's in the home for more than 6 months out of the year, so a typical homeowner,
Mm-hmm.
can rent 3 rooms or less and not be considered a short-term rental.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be more like a bed and breakfast type thing.
For our city definition,
Yes.
basically.
Exactly. Well.
Okay, so really what we're talking about here is a detached ADU or a whole house rental. Okay. Right, so that, and that helps because that tells us, okay, we've already got a regulation for somebody who wants to rent out a room, but we don't have any sort of framework for somebody who wants to rent out a house or constructs an ADU on their property, which they're now allowed to do, up to 2.
Up to
per-
2.
Yeah, so they're allowed up to 2 ADUs now per home lot. And that's kind of maybe where our policy discussion should head.
Yeah. I will put because this is recorded, there is a caveat on the 2 ADU allowances. There are some requirements that have to be met, like can't be in a critical area, certain things like that, to for the city to allow up to 2. So we can allow up to 2. That does not mean that we have to allow 2. But those requirements are laid out in the RCWs, and I did bring those. So if anybody wants to see.
So you're saying we're allowed to have up to 2, but not necessarily?
Yes.
You
So
don't have to approve it, but they're allowed to do it, but you don't need to approve. A little confusing there.
yeah. So I definitely understand that. The city is required to allow up to 2 in our
Urban area.
Code.
Yeah.
and not just in the urban growth area, but within the city. And there are parameters that are set on that. So essentially, those accessory dwelling units still have to meet the life safety requirements of a residential unit. It can't be built in a critical area. Certain parameters like that. Which are generally the same parameters that are set on single-family residences as well. Most of the regulation tries to make it so that ADUs just can't be denied where a single-family residence would be allowed. But there are also some additional parameters for sizing and for jurisdictions that have impact fees, stuff like that. But I do have that if anybody is interested in reading it. It's only like a couple pages, so it's not very long.
So the short-term rental definition seems to explicitly target non-owner occupied residences and ADUs. But on the potential discussion questions, there's a question about hosted short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like a separate thing? Like, my understanding is that a hosted short-term rental would allow the owner-occupier to stay in the house and act as the hosts living there. Basically like a bed and breakfast, but for Airbnbs.
Yeah, under our code, it would be considered a Airbnb
Okay.
right now.
So that would prohibit the use of that as a short-term rental
It would,
by
Pro-
definition.
yes, by definition, yes. I think the purpose of the short-term rental legislation was really to allow for, if somebody wants to, like if an organization or like somebody wants to rent out their whole house in a touristy area, or for whatever reason, shoot, the military do it, right? Then they can essentially. But it's not really meant, from my understanding and review, it's not really meant for the people who are like, hey, I've got an extra room, I need a roommate.
Okay, but like, so what about an attached ADU, like a basement apartment with a separate kitchenette or something? Because that's what, like, I mean, I've only rented an Airbnb a handful of times, but maybe half those times it's been in a situation like that where there is an owner living in the same technical envelope of a building. It's just that there's a separate apartment.
Yeah, then the state doesn't identify it as a short-term rental.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, it would be a rental, but I can't speak for the legislatives.
That's fair enough.
Legislators.
Yeah.
But yes, per their definition, that would not qualify.
Okay.
If they're renting out the entire house and it's for less than 30 days, then that would qualify. There was another question in regard to, in the ADU section of the code, one of the uses identified is as a guest house. Tenino does define guest house. I'm reading my notes, one second. So, but it also notes that the stated intent of ADUs is to provide for workforce housing. I do think that needs to be updated. It sounds outdated.
Of ADUs or of guest houses?
I don't
It
know.
does say that somewhere.
Yeah, it defines it.
Because what I'm thinking right now is that it makes sense to allow short-term rentals in ADUs because we don't have a lot of ADUs, and that can encourage their development, which then they could now exist, and then that would like increase potential housing stock.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't make sense to me to allow like whole house short-term rentals, because that would over time decrease the overall housing stock.
So would it be permissible for us to do something like that?
I would have to do more research.
It's a good question. That's a good point.
There's nothing that I can think of that says that we wouldn't, but what I don't want to do is get us into a predicament of legality.
Like
So,
what?
of legality, right? Like,
Right.
so where we would be liable for, like, the city would be liable for something in regard to, like, what if this was covered under another RCW or WAC, or another jurisdiction got sued for something, right? That's why we do the research to see if any other jurisdictions have done something similar.
Maybe if that is a snag that we run into,
Mhm.
we could incentivize somehow the use of ADUs over entire SFRs.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like a specific like mechanism we could do to do that, or I don't have any specific ideas, but like that might spur on adoption of ADUs, and yeah.
We could have like, I mean, I don't know if it mentions this, but we could have like significantly higher business and operating tax for single-family homes being used as, like short-term, like high to the point, like, we don't want you to do this. But if you do, we make a lot of money, that's cool. As opposed to having like none or reasonable, like licenses for ADUs.
The idea of incentivizing construction of ADUs for this purpose is like the best argument for even getting into this in my in the way I'm feeling right now. Like, I just feel like anybody who wants to do an Airbnb would do it right now. And if we're not gonna be able to capture that much money because people aren't gonna self-report that they're doing an Airbnb, I don't think, unless there's some reason why they would be forced to, but I don't know when that would
But I mean, like, enforcement wouldn't be, I mean, you could just send them a letter or an email or call them and be like, hey, like, I see your listing here, you know, just to let you know, here's the
Sure, but
rules and,
who's gonna do that?
That would be a discussion for Maria,
yeah, okay.
to see, one, I think it would be a good discussion to ask her whether or not she has seen any of these, like, Airbnbs pop up, if anybody's had any complaints or anything, because our system is complaint-based for the most
Yes,
part,
Exactly,
unless she drives by and sees something.
exactly. Complaint-based. So here's an example, like, you're already not legally allowed to live in your RV for more than 15 days, but I guarantee that that is not being enforced widely. And so we're gonna come up with, go through the trouble of developing this ordinance and without enforcement or without somebody patrolling Airbnb or
But
that kind of thing.
There's no revenue source for people camping in their RVs. Like,
Well, we
if-
talked about doing something.
Oh,
like
really?
that. Didn't, no, you remember, I think
I
we did.
don't- okay.
Extending that was something that the mayor wanted to talk about, right?
Yep.
And then there was talk of hooking up to the septic system of houses maybe, or figuring out something like that, but I don't know that it got anywhere really.
I think Maria has an enforcement case open. So I think
But it's only when somebody like is trashing their area that, and somebody complains.
Yeah,
Like that,
essentially,
anybody-
or it's brought to the city's attention somehow, but yes. But that does bring up a good discussion point in regard to what our enforcement capabilities are and what those measures are as laid out in the code. And if we could, especially as we do the development code update, update those. Could you take that back to city council if they wanted?
Definition of an ADU?
Hmm?
Would you like a definition of an ADU? According to,
RCW?
I think so, it is an employee apartment, a caretaker's quarters, a mother-in-law suite, or a guest house. According to, let's see what I'm looking at. This was on, code 108-4060.
So that's ours.
Yeah, that's ours, actually.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Would the new state rules about what an ADU is supersede our local stuff in this case?
Yeah, typically what we want to do is during our development code update, since the adoption of the comp plan update, we update all of our definitions to match what the RCWs are set as, or RCWs or WACs, depending, are set as, because those are the most legally compliant.
Well, so can we look into if it would be permissible for us to just allow Airbnbs, short-term rentals in ADUs? Go for it.
Can we tease out the, kind of the reasoning of not including single-family homes, as well in that definition, at least for the time being? Because when we talk about the single-family homes, right, I think the biggest concern, like you mentioned, is the idea that we're gonna have some conglomerate, right, some large out-of-state organization come in and buy up a bunch of the housing stock in Tenino, and, you know, turn it into short-term rentals or whatever. And
Which does happen in like
It does.
New Orleans or places that are like tourist-based economies.
Yeah, and in smaller jurisdictions, developers are very much known to do that because it's a lower cost of living and therefore lower cost to purchase.
I mean, there's small-time real estate people who do, there's people who have a small portfolio of properties who are, it's easy for them to do this. I inspected a house today in Yelm that we were checking for new construction that had just converted its garage into an ADU. And I knocked on the door not knowing that anyone was there, and it was the guest for an Airbnb. And so yeah, I mean, and then dug in on the house a little bit for my research and found out that the owner doesn't occupy it. It's just like the SFR and the ADU are both rentals, and the owner is somewhere else. So
Yeah, that's what I would like explicitly want to avoid.
right,
And so that was in the county?
it was in the city of Yelm.
Okay.
But it is supposed to be owner occupied, correct? The ADUs have, or the.
I'm not sure what their rules are.
I'd have to double check, but from last time I checked, the jurisdictions can't require that ADUs be owner occupied.
Not the ADU itself, but if it's attached to the house, there has to be the owner.
I don't believe they have to,
I
no.
thought I read something on that, just.
Well, it could
remember.
be like a renter living there. Doesn't have to be like owner occupied.
Like a long-term rental
Yeah,
and an
exactly.
Airbnb in the garage, can you?
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
And then that's still like housing.
Yes, I mean, I think the reason to not include single-family residence is what Brian's talking about.
Yeah.
There's already a affordable housing issue in the area, obviously, we know that. And if somebody can make more money Airbnb-ing like 5 houses and the associated ADUs with that down Park Street, and they can make more money like that, they're probably gonna do that. I mean, I would think, because that's what they do. So I guess that would just make it more difficult for a business to come in and do that. Or they could have like a long-term renter in the house and do Airbnbs of the ADUs in the backyard or something, but they wouldn't be able to just buy up lots and have them all be Airbnb. And so during the winter, no one lives in like a whole strip of Park Street, or for example, or something like that.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna finish up my thought, I mean, if it's a significant enough concern that you all are worried about it, then I guess we move forward with just doing the ADUs for now. I just wanted to make sure that we are maximizing our opportunity to create, potential housing for, people who have, parents come into town, they wanna stay locally, or, individuals out at Tenino Ranch who are coming in for the weekend, but they want to have, a nice, I don't know that they have places to take a shower out there, but if they want to have like a nice place where they can relax and take a shower and all sorts of stuff, then
Well,
we could have the opportunity in town to do that.
If they have all those guests coming who are clamoring for a hotel, maybe they could build a hotel in town.
That's also, yes.
I don't know. I do think that there are limited places to stay. There are Airbnbs and Verbos around the city limits already, and I don't see anything stopping somebody from doing it in town. But if we can encourage ADUs and, control the use of Airbnbs through that mechanism and prevent the downside of, getting rid of affordable housing in what's considered an affordable community, during this housing sort of crisis issue, that's good, right? I mean, that all makes sense to me, but just, wanting someone to build a hotel really badly and then making a lot of concessions about the community and like, the housing just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And we're not like in a, I love Tenino, but it's not really like a tourist mecca. And so you could find an Airbnb out by Mount Rainier or, and buy the place that you're actually going to visit. And I also doubt that. I mean, I'm not saying it won't happen, but I feel like not that many people will pursue the paid permitting process and business licensing to a degree that would actually bring in a lot of money. It may take years to even get back the money that we're anticipating paying to have this code written in the first place.
I agree that the code doesn't do a whole lot. Like, if someone's going to do, I agree with everything you said. If someone's gonna do like a Airbnb in Plano, they're just gonna do it right now, you know?
Is there exist code like this for Thurston County at large?
That's a good question.
Because if unincorporated Thurston County has rules about it and we don't, that'd be interesting, I guess. 'Cause
I can double check.
I liked the inclusion of these three examples, Westport, Langley, and Olympia. It was helpful reading that. But I'm curious if Thurston County has something because I know for a fact there's Airbnbs in unincorporated Thurston County.
What I'm seeing is just in reference to automobile rental agencies and short-term bicycle spaces. I can do more research, and I can also call my friend at Thurston County to see if they've had any issues or what they've been doing to handle that. Some jurisdictions have opted to not do anything. That also really is dependent on our enforcement mechanisms that we put in place. On a side note, Pamela, the WAC for accessory dwelling units specifically says that we may not require the owner of a lot on which there is an accessory dwelling unit to reside in or occupy the accessory dwelling unit or another housing unit on the same lot.
Oh, thank you.
And then, kind of opposite of our point, but it does specify that we can restrict the use of accessory dwelling units for short-term rentals. So we can restrict the use, which I would assume that by proxy means that we can allow the use
Do the
specifically.
inverse.
Exactly.
We're not
I'd have to double check if there's any requirements for single-family homes, but.
If we're not restricting, then like, I don't know, if we're not explicitly saying anything either way, and we're on a complaint-based system, I feel like we don't really need to do anything.
I mean, it's good
I
to
think
have
we're
the
not-
discussion.
I
think,
agree.
yeah, and I think that like if there was an incoming amount of like a lot of demand, or if this, you know, there were a lot of questions being brought to the mayor about this, or you know, this is a pertinent issue for a lot of people in town, then maybe it would be more worth hammering out details. But yeah, I agree.
Well, there's that side of it where there's like the negative where, you know, a jurisdiction finds themselves with an influx of it, and then they kind of see the bad before it happens, right? There's also the inverse of that, which is we want short-term rentals, but we want to control how they come in, and we want to incentivize it somehow. And so the code can do both. It's just do we want to be proactive, or do we want to leave it until we have to be, you know, retroactive?
The other thing though, and I wonder what the mayor would say, but I know that we've had a lot of budget issues and
Mhm.
money is really tight right now, which is kind of the thing in the back of my mind throughout this discussion in terms of like, maybe we continue talking and thinking about this, and then if it either becomes an issue that we have to address, or we have the money to spend to address it, then that would dictate how we do it. But
Yeah, and there are obviously financial enforcement mechanisms as well. So typically those are at the same, approximately the same cost of what it costs the city to enforce it, depending on the severity of the situation. But we can also look into those.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how like Olympia or any of these three communities enforce theirs. I mean, they have the law, but how do they deal with enforcement?
Yeah, I can definitely give them a call. Actually know a planner in Langley too, which is wild because that city's very small.
But it is
So,
a vacation destination.
yeah, that's true. Well, my husband's from Langley.
Oh.
So,
Weird.
but yeah, so I can definitely give them a call and talk to their code enforcement person and actually ask to what, like, not just going past their code, right? Because the code is written, I interpret it how I'm going to interpret it. That doesn't mean that they're interpreting it the same way, and that also doesn't mean that it's being applied that same way, right? Because sometimes mechanisms, when we try to put them into effect, don't work like they should. And so what often happens is on the back end, we do workarounds until we can actually correct the code. So, which is why I suggested I can give them a call. And that's a really easy thing to do.
That would be useful.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to rebrand the whole thing as an incentivizing the development of ADUs. I like that. That makes sense to me. Just like trying to get people to do Airbnbs. There's nothing stopping them from doing it now, but if we could incentivize the development of ADUs, then we get benefit from sewer hookups and like permitting fees. There's a whole slew of benefits to the people who live here and in terms of the sewer bill and all that kind of good stuff. And so we all benefit from that, all the citizens of town.
Mhm.
But if we just allow Airbnbs outright, I don't know who we're doing that for. It's certainly not going to benefit everybody who lives here. I mean, in my personal opinion.
I just texted, buddy on Olympia City Council,
Oh.
and they have a registry for them, and they're limiting, like to 2 per owner.
Oh, so you
Yeah.
couldn't own more than 2 Airbnbs in Olympia? Okay.
Yeah, they have an interesting hybrid approach.
So they obviously see the concerns that we have. That's why they're limiting it, right? I mean,
Yep. And Langley does, they do a maximum amount, if I remember right.
Yeah, 15, I believe.
Yeah, so they limit it, like, a lot of jurisdictions limit marijuana growing facilities or selling facilities. That's the closest regulations that I've got in my mind. But essentially requires that they get a business license and that they're essentially put on a list. And some jurisdictions also put that list online of saying these are the area or the specific locations of where said business is. Some don't, they just keep it internally. So that's also something to think about.
mhm.
But I think the biggest thing right now is whether or not, it sounds like you guys want to incentivize the development of ADUs, and as part of that, better understand the enforcement mechanisms for short-term rentals in ADUs. And whether or not we can allow, or we can make it so that only the ADUs are used for the short-term rentals if they want to use them for that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
If I could ask a question or bring something.
Go for it, yeah.
There's certain properties, some properties that have acreage that have hookups for motor homes or trailers or small mobile homes. And I believe they're allowed to use those for ADUs. And so we're just talking about a structure, but are we also talking about that type of situation that, because I did have a 5 acre and I did have a hookup. And, which would have been ideal to have a small mobile home on. And for a while there, an ADU had to be a mobile, not a fixed, not a building, but a mobile, where it could be mobile. So are we allowed to use those for ADUs?
My understanding is no. The difference being that there's wheels.
Right, it's a
Um,
mobile, yeah,
yeah, and it's a building code thing.
yeah.
And RVs are not, the state does have regulations in under the health code in regard to how long you can live in an RV. It's not strictly enforced under the state standards.
And I
Um,
would want to be careful, because it could be something obnoxious, but it could be
Yeah,
another choice to bring in for tourists and a place to stay. But I'm talking about a place that's set up for, it has the hookups and everything that's needed. But
Ye-
you're right.
yeah, I think that would be classified as a campground, which would essentially be a type of short-term rental. I don't know if that would classify as a short-term rental. It doesn't specify campgrounds or not, but
It could be short term, yeah.
yeah, as long as it's less than 31 days. So I'd have to look into
Just
that.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
It might be more, instead of having the expense of building a 1,000 square foot, or 800 square foot little house with a kitchen and a full structure, people would move a mobile home onto their unit and be able to rent that out. But just,
Are you talking about mobile homes or RVs?
I'm talking about a mobile home.
Oh,
Okay.
Like a manufacturer.
Yeah.
Yep, my brain said RV, sorry.
I was thinking, I thought you meant RVs too
I
for some
probably
reason.
said it, but I mean for like a small mobile home, a unit like that.
A mobile,
They have so many nice ones now.
Do
Yeah.
we allow mobile? We don't allow.
no, mobile homes are
parks
no
in
longer
town.
permitted.
The ones that
per
are
the
here are
state.
like grandfathered in.
Oh, okay.
Manufactured housing
Yeah, but they have the
is
small
permitted and
houses.
it's required to be codified the same as a single-family residence or a stick-built home.
Yeah.
So the state does have regulations in regard to manufactured housing being considered the same as a single-family residence that's just stick-built. So,
That's kind of interesting. Well,
I know on 1/5 zoning in unincorporated Thurston County, you can get an FMU, which I think that they still have to have like their own septic and,
They have to have it, but they are allowed,
yeah.
called mother-in-law units or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Not a bad idea,
Family,
though.
family member unit,
Yeah.
yeah.
People might be more enticed to have something like that than the expense of a structure.
we already talked about the housing stock concern. Because Brian brought that up. And then the other one was maybe we can just work the outdated bed and breakfast section of the code at the same time. Do recommend updating that code if we do go forward. I think it sounds like we're gonna go forward. Do we need to take it back to city council?
Before reworking the policy complete, or before we move to the city code,
Yeah,
yeah, we should probably go back to city council before we spend money, yeah.
that makes sense. Okay, so that would be up to you guys on what exactly you want me to take back to the city council. Essentially, I would be presenting it along with Adam. But essentially, I would be presenting it to them as you guys have discussed it and would like the city's approval to move forward with updating the code.
Based on what we've discussed?
Yes.
That focusing on ADUs and that kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
So it would be the bed and breakfast, ADUs, and short-term rentals. Whether or not we build those policies and actually like write that code by the end, totally different question. This is just to ask them if we can move forward in the discussions, research to build those codes or update them.
okay.
We don't have a short-term rental code, so I'd have to write it, but.
But our short-term rental code, the way that we're discussing it, would focus on ADUs. Not a
Yeah.
Separate
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, but it's still something that we'd actually have to write, right?
Sure, sure.
We have ADU stuff, but it's also not that.
So you're suggesting
Intense.
that it goes to the council now, based on our discussion, and we ask if they want us to keep working on it?
Yep.
Basically, if they want you to work more on it.
Yep, and then bring it back to you guys. It's really, I'm your proxy, and I do the research, and then I bring it back to you. You guys are the,
So ostensibly, the question for them is basically, do we have the budget to do this?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Excellent.
Sounds great.
when it comes down to it, that is absolutely the question.
Good one.
Other than that, I don't have anything. I do have copies of the RCWs for the definitions, accessory dwelling unit, local regulations, and the WAC for accessory dwelling units, if anybody wants to see it. And I also have an extra copy of the technical memo that I sent out if anybody wants it.
I have it.
Did you get a copy?
Yes, I have it, yeah,
Cool.
I got it online.
Cool.
Okay,
Make a motion to send that to council.
do we need to make a motion to send it to council at this point?
I would say yes,
Okay,
to be on the safe side.
would you like to?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to send to council what we discussed, I guess specifically on looking into the allowability of short-term rentals in ADUs and exploring, like not allowing them in single-family homes.
And updating the bed and breakfast
And
code
updating the bed and breakfast code.
and associated ADU codes,
Yes,
okay, to meet state requirements.
to meet state requirements.
Cool.
That's my motion.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did you get that? Okay. Does anybody have any other announcements or anything?
Well, I could make a few announcements.
Sure, go ahead.
July is a very busy month in Tenino. The Tenino Lions Club Annual Fundraiser Garage Sale at the Tenino Elementary School, July 17th through the 19th, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a wonderful event. It's one of
It
their
is.
major fundraisers. And right after that is the Oregon Trail Parade, July 26th, which is followed by the Oregon Trail Festival. So that's for the 24th, 25th, and the 26th. And after that, we have the Tenino Young at Heart Theater, July 29th, 30th, and the 31st, with the theme of Once Upon a Mattress.
That's
So
adorable.
it's a very exciting time for us. So that's all I wanted to bring forward.
And the car show as well.
And the car shows, and all the other things in our Saturday farmer's market, of course.
I think we need a hotel.
I think we need a hotel. Or temporary lodging these months, something.
All right, well, thank you, and on that, I will say the meeting adjourned.